Back to the Jimmy Barrett Show on KPRC 950.
Bail bond reform. It is a nightmare. It's a nightmare here in Houston. It is a nightmare all across the country. The reason why it is a nightmare is because we are allowing dangerous individuals back out on the streets almost immediately after committing a crime. They go out, they commit another crime, they're arrested, they come in, and we let them out again. It happens over and over and over and over again. Even Kim Ogg, even though she's part of the problem, in my personal opinion, part of the problem, even she thinks it's gone way too far. The problem seems to be at the judicial level. These are our judges that we have elected.
Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, live sports, trending bits, and timeless hits. And that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free, upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. Law & Order SVU streaming now.
Because we're not paying any, it's either we support allowing criminals back out on the streets, or we're just voting for the person with the D next to their name, whatever the reason. Today, there was testimony in front of the state legislature from Tasir Padar and Rania Mancorius. They are with Houston Crime Stoppers. I'm just going to play these cuts for you. They're very quick, back to back to back, so you can hear what they were telling the state legislature today about where the problems lie with this bail bond reform.
I am calling on the politicians that we elect to understand that you are now reached a level where I'm getting involved and my colleagues at the level of other CEOs in this town are going to get involved. And we're very upset that Houston is, in my home country of Pakistan, Karachi is safer than Houston right now. I'm not blaming the police, but I am blaming the politicians. And I'm friends with many of them. And I don't think that they understand that misdemeanor bail reform is something that's very unparalleled to felony violent type issues. They're way different.
You can see very distinctly the party lines. Every time we say, please just talk to us about what's happening with the repeated release of violent felony offenders, the response is, we can't lock up people who are nonviolent and just want to go to work. That was a misdemeanor bond issue. Please, let's go back to the issue at hand, and we can't make progress.
We can't just lock up people who just want to go to work. That is the most ridiculous comeback I think I've ever heard. And we're going to talk to a guy who's probably heard every comeback when it comes to that kind of stuff you can imagine. His name is Ken W. Good. He's a Texas bail attorney, also a member of the Professional Bondsmen of Texas. Where do you think we are with this, Ken? It feels like this is out of control, and no amount of common sense can be applied in order to try to get the genie back in the bottle on this one.
I agree. I think it is. The genie is completely loose and cannot be put back in the bottle, and it's just getting worse and worse. And until we come to a point where we can agree and we can get the politicians to agree that it's getting worse, it doesn't look like anybody's willing to address it.
From your perch, if you had to pick a level of, I guess, where the blame most lies in all this, we've got a couple of different layers here. We've got the police. They're trying to do their job. They're arresting these people. They're taking them in. The district attorney, it makes the decision about whether or not they're going to charge them, and that decision sometimes is made on whether or not they think it's likely that the judge is going to bring them to trial on those particular issues. You've got the judges themselves. Where you've got politicians who probably are involved with what the judges are thinking and all this, where does the blame lie? Have you figured out the pecking order on this thing?
Yes, I think the blame lies with the county commissioner's court first. One of the commissioners specifically approached a plaintiff's attorney group and asked them to sue the county several years ago, and the existing judges defended the system, and then they made it a political issue. Those judges got defeated in the election, and the new judges came in with the promise that they were going to settle the lawsuit. As a part of their settlement, they changed Texas law. So in Houston, the law is different than the rest of the state because they've agreed to change it, and they've agreed to really take away accountability. So, our problem is we're not holding people accountable. While that was changes to the misdemeanor system, those changes are now bleeding over into the felony system. That's the reason why you're seeing that. And then the misdemeanor system, as long as you're charged with a certain crime and it's not on the list, you never even see a magistrate. You can do that one crime a bunch of times, and you'll never see a magistrate. So we've taken away all accountability, and that's the problem.
Ken, give me an example of a crime that you would think would be not only an arrestable offense but a holdable offense that now does not even get considered for that because it's on that list or not on the list.
Let's make it real simple. You're arrested for something, you get a $100 misdemeanor PR bond, which is a free bond. It's not even $100. It didn't cost you, maybe $30. You get out of jail, and then you just fail to appear. You don't go to court. Okay, well, now you should have a warrant issued, but under their agreement, you have to do that 3 times before they can do anything to you. And then we're seeing situations where they're released once, get a new bond, twice, get a new bond, 3 new bond, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If just do the math. They're having at least a 50% failure to appear rate. It's probably a lot worse than that now. But if you have 1,000 people arrested a week and 50% don't show, that means the next week you got to have 1,500 people show up just to get caught up. And the problem is every week that is multiplying, and that's why before COVID their dockets had doubled in size, is because no one's showing up for court and they're not doing anything about it.
With COVID, how far behind do you think we are?
Oh, it's probably doubled again, or maybe even tripled. I heard numbers about what the number of pending district court felony cases, and it's just astronomical. And before, I think right as COVID was building, there was a report to the Commissioner's Court in Harris County saying that they needed to dismiss between 12,000 and 18,000 felony cases just to prevent the system from collapsing. And this group was arguing, well, at some point you just got to cut your losses. Well, the county's not cutting their losses. It's the victims who are the ones that are losing when they just dismiss their case because they haven't taken care of the system.
I think, this all began as misdemeanor bond reform, and everybody, I think, pretty much agreed, for minor drug offenses and some of these other, people haven't paid parking tickets and some of these other things, it doesn't make sense to arrest somebody for these things or to stick them in jail for these things. And everybody kind of agreed to that, right? But how did this evolve into where we are now with people who have multiple felonies getting out of jail and killing people?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the premise because, if you look at the jail population hasn't changed as a result of the settlement. The same number of people were in jail afterwards as before, and that tells you that this wasn't a problem to begin with. We weren't keeping first-time offenders. That was just their talking point on why we needed to have change. Otherwise you'd say, hey, it's a big decrease. No, it's the jail in Harris County right now is full. They don't have room. And so the reason why it's evolved is because the magistrates that are doing the misdemeanors, the ones that are on the list that they see, are the same ones that are doing the felony cases. And so those people have been told, and I believe they're very much under the influence of the Commissioner's Court and one commissioner, they've been told, release people. And you've got one judge who says, well, if they say they can't afford it, then I can't hold them. I have to set the bail at an amount they say they can afford. That's not true. That's not the law. That's what that's actually what was argued to the Fifth Circuit as the law in O'Donnell, and the court rejected it. And so that's just now changing the law for Harris County and different from the rest of the country and the rest of the state of Texas.
Yeah, that you just highlighted the part that I think most of us have found the most ridiculous about this. And that is, since when did setting bond on an individual have anything to do with affordability? It was not meant to be affordable. It was meant to make them accountable, number one.
Yes.
And number two is that the higher bond is supposed to be for dangerous individuals with the idea of, we hope they don't post bond because they really shouldn't be on the streets.
Well, but the bail has one purpose, to assure appearance. And if you no longer are going to hold anyone accountable for not appearing, then you have just destroyed the whole purpose of bail. You've really turned the criminal justice system into a voluntary action. And the judges could address this just by holding people accountable. And they've decided not to do that. They've decided that, for whatever purpose, that they can't hold somebody accountable if they don't show up, or they're not going to hold somebody accountable if they don't show up. Until that changes, this is going to continue to bleed over into the felony system, and the felony system is going to become a bigger and bigger problem. And you're going to, Crime Stoppers has this list of over 90 people who've been murdered in Harris County while they were out on multiple PR bonds. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, well, you're right. It absolutely is. So you're saying we need new judges first and foremost. Is that what has to happen?
Well, there's a bunch of bills pending in the legislature right now, and some of them are, if they're not going to hold people accountable, then some of these bills are going to require them to do that. And so I think you may get some action from the legislature. I'm not really convinced of it because, we have the same divide at the legislature on what's the proper reform for bail. We've got one group pushing a risk assessment. You've got another group saying the risk assessments are not valid. They shouldn't be used as a part of criminal justice reform. And so I think we have a fundamental disagreement in the state of Texas at our legislature about what is proper reform. We can find compromise, but the people pushing a risk assessment will not compromise for anything less than a risk assessment. And so if you don't agree with a risk assessment, it's going to be an impasse again for the third legislative session in a row.
Oh, boy. All right. Hey, Ken, thanks for the information. As always, appreciate your time, sir. Take care. Best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Texas bail attorney Ken W. Good. Back with more in a moment. Jimmy Barrett Show, AM 950, KPRC.